The human officer thought he was being polite. He complimented her tentacles, and the entire corridor went silent. Not because he insulted her, but because, in her species, those words were a public declaration of intent. And once spoken, they could never be taken back. Lieutenant Marcus Hale had learned 2 things during his first month aboard the coalition vessel Aurelius. Never walk too fast in corridors designed for 6-legged species, and never trust a universal translator that claimed to be 98% accurate. The second lesson arrived the moment he turned a corner and nearly collided with her. She moved with a fluid grace that made the busy corridor seem clumsy by comparison. Turquoise skin, calm posture, and a crown of elegant, tentacle-like filaments that shifted subtly as she reacted. Slight surprise, quickly masked by composure. Marcus caught himself staring, then did what humans often did when uncomfortable. He smiled. "Sorry about that," he said. Then, because silence made him nervous and politeness came naturally, he added, "Your tentacles look great today. Did you style them differently?" The words had barely left his mouth when the ship seemed to exhale. Conversations stopped. Footsteps slowed. Somewhere behind him, something metallic clattered to the floor. The woman froze, not stiff with anger, rigid with something closer to shock. Her filaments rippled, their color deepening in a way Marcus had no frame of reference for, and her eyes locked onto his with unsettling intensity. Around them, alien crew members stared openly now. A tall avian officer tilted his head in disbelief. 2 insectoid technicians exchanged rapid clicks that sounded suspiciously like laughter. Marcus felt the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. "Is that bad?" he asked carefully. She did not answer. Instead, she took a deliberate step closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "Lieutenant Hale," she said, each word precise, controlled and far too calm. "You will come with me. Now." That was when Marcus noticed the subtle shift in posture. Not threatening, not hostile, but unmistakably authoritative. This wasn't embarrassment. It was containment. As she turned and walked toward a side corridor, the crowd parted without hesitation. Marcus followed, acutely aware that dozens of eyes tracked their every step. His translator chimed softly against his collar, blissfully unaware that it might have just detonated a diplomatic mine. Behind the sealed door she led him through, Marcus exhaled slowly, rubbing the back of his neck. "Okay," he said with a nervous half-smile. "Before we go any further, I should probably ask, what exactly did I just say?" Her filaments shifted again, darker this time. And that was when Marcus realized politeness in the wrong language could be a very dangerous thing. The door slid shut behind them with a soft hiss that sounded far louder than it should have. Marcus immediately regretted every life choice that had brought him to this moment. The room was small, utilitarian, and soundproof. Definitely not the place you were taken for a casual clarification. The alien woman turned slowly to face him, folding her hands behind her back. Her posture was disciplined, controlled, but the faint, restless movement of her filaments betrayed something else entirely. "You asked what you said," she began. Marcus nodded quickly. "Yes, preferably before someone arrests me or throws me out an airlock." One of her eyes narrowed, not in anger, more like confusion at his tone. "Lieutenant," she said, "the phrase your translator rendered as a compliment does not exist in my language." His stomach dropped. "That's not reassuring." She continued anyway. "What you actually said was a formal observation traditionally made when initiating a courtship acknowledgement." Marcus blinked. "A what?" "A public declaration of romantic intent," she clarified, "made only when one is prepared to accept social and legal consequences." For a full second, his brain refused to process the sentence. Then it caught up. "Oh," he said faintly. "Oh no." Her filaments shifted again, this time displaying a muted, shimmering hue. "Under our customs, such a declaration, once overheard, cannot be withdrawn without dishonor." Marcus dragged a hand down his face. "I swear to you I wasn't trying to initiate anything. I was just being polite. Humans do that, sometimes excessively." I am aware, she replied. Your species has a reputation for verbal openness. That's one word for it. She studied him in silence, clearly weighing something. Finally, she sighed. A soft, melodic sound that carried more emotion than her expression allowed. The problem, she said, is that several crew members witnessed the exchange. The ship's social systems will already have flagged it. Flagged it how? Marcus asked cautiously. As a recorded declaration. He stared at her. You're telling me my broken translator just filed paperwork on my behalf? Yes. I really need a better translator. Despite herself, one corner of her mouth twitched. You may formally deny intent, she continued. But that would imply deception on my part for entertaining the declaration, which would affect my standing. Marcus straightened. Then don't. I won't let you take the hit for my mistake. Her eyes lifted, meeting his directly now. Humans accept responsibility readily. We mess up just as readily, he said. Seems fair. For a moment the tension shifted. Less rigid, more uncertain. Something unspoken passed between them, curiosity edging into something warmer. Then the ship's emergency alarm blared overhead. Red lights flashed. Both of them turned toward the door instinctively. She exhaled sharply. We will address this later. Marcus nodded, already moving. Good. Because if we survive whatever that is, I'd really like a second chance to say hello properly. As they stepped back into chaos, neither of them noticed how closely they now stood, or how the consequences of that single sentence were already spreading far beyond either of their control. The emergency lights bathed the corridor in pulsing red as the ship's automated voice echoed through the deck. Atmospheric failure detected. Section 12. All personnel evacuate immediately. Marcus didn't ask where Section 12 was. He already knew. That's the civilian transit ring, he said, already moving. Families pass through there during rotation shifts. The alien woman was beside him instantly, keeping pace despite the growing chaos. Crew members rushed past them in panicked streams, some shouting in languages Marcus couldn't understand, others frozen by fear. She tapped a wrist console, her filaments shifting rapidly as data streamed across the display. Life support is degrading faster than predicted. Several compartments failed to seal. How many inside? Marcus asked. Unknown, she replied. But probability suggests non-combatants. That was all he needed. They reached a sealed bulkhead where warning symbols flashed angrily. A thin, warped seam glowed along the doorframe, pressure imbalance. Marcus crouched beside the manual override, fingers already working. I can get this open, but when I do, the pressure's going to drop hard. I can function without oxygen longer than you, she said calmly. I will go first. Marcus shook his head. No. We go together. She hesitated, just a fraction of a second. Then she nodded. The door slid open with a violent hiss. Cold air tore past them, dragging loose debris into the corridor. Inside, the compartment was dim, silent except for the panicked whimpers of those trapped within. Marcus spotted them immediately. 3 figures huddled near the far wall, small and trembling. Hey! He called, keeping his voice steady. You're okay. We've got you. He didn't wait for confirmation. He crossed the room, scooping up the smallest child and guiding the others toward the exit. His lungs burned, his vision narrowing at the edges, but he focused on one thing: getting them out. Strong hands caught his shoulder as he staggered back through the bulkhead. The door sealed just as his knees buckled. He barely registered the sound of oxygen rushing back into the corridor before the world steadied again. When he looked up, she was kneeling beside him, her filaments glowing faintly, her expression no longer carefully neutral. You risked yourself, she said quietly. Without hesitation. Marcus shrugged weakly. Seemed like the right thing to do. Her gaze softened in a way that had nothing to do with protocol. Medical teams swarmed around them, voices overlapping, but Marcus noticed something strange. Where her hand still rested against his arm, a subtle warmth pulsed. Her filaments reacted, color deepening. responding to his presence in a way that drew startled glances from nearby officers. One of the medics frowned at a scanner. "That's not supposed to happen." Marcus met her eyes, suddenly aware that the consequences of his earlier words had just evolved into something far more complicated and far more irreversible. By the time Marcus's vitals stabilized, the story had already outrun him. He felt it in the way conversations stopped when he entered a room, in the glances that lingered just a second too long, in the careful politeness of officers who, hours earlier, had barely known his name. The alien woman, Lieutenant Salith, he had finally learned, stood beside him in the medical bay as senior staff reviewed data they clearly did not understand. This interaction should not have produced a resonance response, one xenobiologist said, scrolling through holographic readouts. Yet it did. And it's stabilizing, another added. Not degrading. Marcus shifted on the examination table. Is that good or bad? Salith answered before anyone else could. Unprecedented. That word followed them out of medical and straight into a formal summons. The observation chamber had been converted into something ceremonial, soft lighting, curved seating, representatives from multiple species arranged in careful hierarchy. Marcus felt underdressed and profoundly out of place. "This is a courtesy inquiry," the senior envoy said, smiling in a way that suggested it was anything but. "A misunderstanding occurred, one that has now escalated." Salith remained composed, though Marcus sensed tension in the way she held herself. The declaration was unintentional. "Intent does not negate consequence," the envoy replied smoothly, "especially when biology responds." A projection appeared between them, two overlapping neural signatures, intertwined in a pattern Marcus didn't recognize but instinctively felt was important. "If this bond progresses," the envoy continued, "it will be historic. If it is broken improperly, it will be insulting." Marcus leaned forward. "So what are our options?" A pause. Then, participation, or formal rejection. Salith's fingers curled slightly at her side. Rejection, Marcus realized, didn't just mean embarrassment. It meant loss, status, trust, identity. "I won't walk away if it harms you," Marcus said quietly. Her eyes flicked toward him, surprise flashing briefly across her features. "You do not owe me permanence." "No," he agreed, "but I owe you honesty." That earned him something rare, an unguarded smile. The envoy observed them carefully. "There will be a cultural gathering. You will attend together. No declarations, no denials. Simply observe compatibility." Marcus let out a breath. "That sounds manageable." Salith leaned closer, lowering her voice. "It is not." The gathering was formal, elegant, and merciless. Every gesture meant something. Every inch of space between them was scrutinized. When Marcus instinctively offered his arm, Salith hesitated, then accepted. A ripple passed through the room. As they moved together, Marcus felt it again, that subtle warmth, that quiet awareness of her presence beyond simple proximity. This wasn't just attention anymore. The galaxy wasn't watching out of curiosity. It was waiting for an answer. The gathering ended without applause, but the silence that followed was heavier than any ceremony. Marcus and Salith stood together near the viewport, the vastness of space stretching beyond the glass. Stars drifted slowly, indifferent to cultural protocols and political consequences. For the first time since the corridor incident, there was no audience. No envoys, no scanners, no expectations pressing in from all sides. Salith broke the silence first. "What you did today," she said softly. "You adapted. You watched. You chose your actions carefully." Marcus huffed a quiet laugh. "Trust me, that's not my natural state." She turned toward him, her filaments shifting into a calmer, deeper hue. "That is precisely why it matters. Humans are unfiltered. You feel first. Decide second." "Guilty," he admitted. Then, more seriously, "I meant what I said earlier. I won't continue this if it costs you who you are." Her gaze held his. "And I will not ask you to become something you are not." For a moment, Neither spoke. Then Salith stepped closer, not crossing a boundary, but standing right at its edge. Our science assumed bonding required similarity, she said. But what we observed today contradicts that. Your emotional responses did not overwrite mine. They reinforced them. Marcus frowned slightly. So, we don't cancel each other out. No, she said, a small smile forming. We amplify. The decision, when it came, didn't feel dramatic. Felt inevitable. They returned to the chamber together, side by side, no longer unsure of their spacing. When the envoy asked for their intent, Marcus answered plainly. What started as a mistake became a choice, he said. And I choose to continue. Salith mirrored him. So do I. The chamber reacted instantly, data spikes, hushed voices, hurried recalculations. Their neural patterns synchronized visibly this time, no longer unstable but steady, harmonious. A bridge, not a fracture. Later, alone again, Marcus finally smiled. You know, back in that corridor, I thought I'd ruined my career. Salith's filaments pulsed with amusement. Instead, you redefined a protocol that has existed for centuries. Still, he said, next time I compliment someone, I'm checking the translation first. She laughed. A sound warm, melodic, undeniably real. And when he said it again, quietly this time just for her, there was no misunderstanding at all. Your tentacles look great today. This time, the words meant exactly what they were supposed to mean. What began as a simple misunderstanding became something no translator could ever explain. Not a mistake, but a bridge. Between species, between worlds. And sometimes, the future of the galaxy begins with just one honest sentence.